Chapter 2 Sadhana Prakarana Activities for Spiritual Advancement Sutra 56 By associating with devotees, the fortunate souls attain faith in unalloyed devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7. 1. 1 and 7. 19. 1. It is said, Narada approached Sanat Kumara and said, "O Master, please instruct me." Sanat Kumara replied, "First tell me what you know, and then I will teach what is beyond that." When one has faith, then he can meditate. A person who has no faith cannot meditate. A person who has faith can meditate. One should be eager to understand the nature of faith. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 3. 25. 25, it is said, in the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and thereafter he is freed, and his attraction becomes fixed. Then real devotion and devotional service begin. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.49 and 64, it is said, by associating with a devotee, one awakens his faith in devotional service to Krishna. Because of devotional service, one's dormant love for Krishna awakens, and thus one's material, conditional existence comes to an end. A faithful devotee is a truly eligible candidate for the loving service of the Lord. Sutra 57 Faith is a specific activity performed in the heart. It makes one desire to engage in devotional service. It is different from the other means of spiritual advancement. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Katha Upanishad, 1. 2. 23, it is said, the Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is attained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11. 11. 32, it is said, such a saintly person must be considered the most learned of men. He perfectly understands that the ordinary religious duties prescribed by me and various Vedic scriptures possess favorable qualities that purify the performer, and he knows that neglect of such duties constitutes a discrepancy in one's life. Having taken complete shelter at my lotus feet, however, a saintly person ultimately renounces such ordinary religious duties and worships me alone. He is thus considered to be the best among all living entities. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.59, 60 and 62, it is said, although Krishna has previously explained the proficiency of executing Vedic rituals, performing fruitive activity as enjoined in the Vedas, practicing yoga, and cultivating jnana, these last instructions are most powerful and stand above all the others. If the devotee has faith in the strength of this order, he worships Lord Krishna and gives up all other activities. By rendering transcendental loving service to Krishna, one automatically performs all subsidiary activities. Sutra 58 Faith is characterized by taking shelter of the Lord and surrendering unto Him. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6.18, it is said, because I desire liberation, let me surrender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who first enlightened Lord Brahma in Vedic knowledge through Lord Brahma's heart. The Lord is the original source of all enlightenment and spiritual advancement. In the Bhagavad Gita, 18.66, Lord Krishna explains, abandon all varieties of religion and just surrender unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reactions. Do not fear. In the Vaisnava Tantra it is said, the 6 divisions of surrender are, 1. The acceptance of those things favorable to devotional service, 2. The rejection of unfavorable things, 3. The conviction that Krishna will give protection, 4. The acceptance of the Lord as one's guardian or master, 5. Full self-surrender, and 6. Humility. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.102, it is said, when a devotee thus fully surrenders unto Krishna's lotus feet, Krishna accepts him as one of his confidential associates. Sutra 59 Faith leads one to take shelter at a bona fide spiritual master's feet. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6.22, it is said, this ancient Svetasvatara Upanishad, which is the supreme secret of Vedic literature, should not be spoken to one who is not peaceful or in control of his senses, nor to one who is not a dutiful son or an obedient disciple. In this Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6.23, it is also said, only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11. 20. 17, it is said, when one wants to cross a large ocean, he requires a strong boat. It is said that the human form of life is a good boat by which one can cross the ocean of nescience. In the human form of life one can obtain the guidance of a good navigator, the spiritual master. One also gets a favorable wind by the mercy of Krishna, and that wind is the instructions of Krishna. The human body is the boat, the instructions of Lord Krishna are the favorable winds, and the spiritual master is the navigator. The spiritual master knows well how to adjust the sails to catch the winds favorably and steer the boat to its destination. If, however, one does not take advantage of this opportunity, one wastes the human form of life. Wasting time and life in this way is the same as committing suicide. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.9, it is said, if, by a good fortune, a living entity develops faith in Krishna, he begins to associate with devotees. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.115, it is said, on the path of devotional service one must observe the following items. 1. One must accept a bona fide spiritual master. 2. Accept initiation from him. 3. Serve him. 4. Receive instructions from the spiritual master and make inquiries in order to learn devotional service. 5. Follow in the footsteps of the previous acharyas and follow the directions given by the spiritual master. Sutra 60. Then one engages in the 9 activities of sadhana bhakti devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 4. 5. 6. It is said, one should gaze on the Lord, hear about him, chant his glories, and meditate on him. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, hearing and chanting about the transcendental holy name, form, qualities, paraphernalia, and pastimes of Lord Vishnu, remembering them, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, offering the Lord respectful worship with 16 types of paraphernalia, offering prayers to the Lord, becoming his servant, considering the Lord one's best friend, and surrendering everything unto him, in other words serving him with the body, mind, and words. These 9 processes are accepted as pure devotional service. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.121, it is said, after one is established in devotional service, the positive actions are, 1. Hearing, 2. Chanting, 3. Remembering, 4. Worshipping, 5. Praying, 6. Serving, 7. Accepting servitorship, 8. Becoming a friend, and 9. Surrendering fully. Sutra 61. Then one hears about the Supreme Lord's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad it is said, Yajnavalkya said, one will tell you about the Supreme Lord. Please listen carefully. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2:37, it is said, those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. Srila Goswami explains, now will be described the sequence of events in hearing about the Lord. Hearing about the Lord occurs when the ears touch sounds of the Lord's names, forms, qualities, and pastimes. First one hears the Lord's holy name, and by this hearing the heart becomes purified. When the heart is thus purified one hears descriptions of the Lord's form. In this way one becomes qualified to hear both the Lord's name and the descriptions of his form. When one hears about the Lord's form, one naturally also hears about the Lord's qualities. When one hears the Lord's name and the descriptions of the Lord's form and qualities, one also comes to hear about the Lord's pastimes. In this way I have written about the sequence of activities in hearing about the Lord. Sutra 62. Then one chants the glories of all these. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad it is said, he chants the glories of the Lord. In the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, he worships the Lord by describing him with words. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2:11, it is said, O King, constant chanting of the holy name of the Lord after the ways of the great authorities is the doubtless and fearless way of success for all, including those who are free from all material desires, those who are desirous of all material enjoyment, and those who are self-satisfied by dint of transcendental knowledge. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1:5-22, it is also said, learned circles have positively concluded that the infallible purpose of the advancement of knowledge, namely austerities, study of the Vedas, sacrifice, chanting of hymns, and charity, culminates in the transcendental descriptions of the Lord, who is defined in choice poetry. Srila Goswami explains, when one is not engaged in hearing the Lord's glories from a great soul, one may personally engage in chanting the Lord glories. If one has no power to chant the Lord's glories, then one may simply hear. Chanting the Lord's glories becomes a source of great pleasure for the chanter. When many are assembled together to hear and chant the Lord's glories, the chanting is called Sankirtana. Sutra 63. Then one remembers all these. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, by remembering the Lord one worships him. In the Narada Purana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead explains, one who turns from material things and remembers me in his heart, attains me. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, remembering the Lord progresses in 5 stages. First one tries to understand the Lord. That is called smarana. Then the heart becomes attracted to the Lord. That is called dharana. Then one specifically meditates on the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. That is called dhyana. Then that meditation drowns one in a flood of nectar. That is called driven samadhi. Then the Lord personally appears before the meditator. That is called samadhi. Sutra 64. Then one serves the Lord's feet. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Katha Upanishad, 2.3, it is said, the demigods serve the supersoul sitting in the middle of the heart. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 4.21-31, it is said, by the inclination to serve the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, suffering humanity can immediately cleanse the dirt which has accumulated in their minds during innumerable births. Like the Ganges water, which emanates from the toes of the lotus feet of the Lord, such a process immediately cleanses the mind, and thus spiritual of Krishna consciousness gradually increases. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, service to the Lord is appropriate in all times and places. Service here means service to the feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Included in service to the Lord are, seeing and touching the deity of the Lord, circumambulating the Lord, visiting the temple of the Lord, and going on pilgrimage to holy places like the Ganges, Jagannath Puri, Dvarka, and Mathura. Sutra 65. One may also worship the Lord. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Svetavatara Upanishad, 6.10, it is said, with offerings of clarified butter let us worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the master of the demigods, in whom the worlds rest, and who rules the 2-footed and the 4-footed. In the Vishnu Dharma Purana it is said, Lord Krishna is pleased with the devotee who in 8 ways devotedly worships his deity from his mantra, and the spiritual master who gave the mantra. In the Bhagavad Gita, 9.26, Lord Krishna explains, if one offers me with love and devotion a leaf, a flower, fruit, or water, I will accept it. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, they who by spiritual initiation are followers of the path of Narada Muni and other great souls and who thus have a relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a relationship established by their taking shelter of the feet of their spiritual master, must engage in worship of the Supreme Lord. For they who are prosperous householders, the path of worship of the deity of the Lord is most important. If they ignore this duty and act as if they had no money and were poverty-stricken, merely engaged in meditating on the Lord and serving Him in ways that do not involve the expenditure of money, these cheating activities will not help them. Therefore the householders have a solemn duty to worship the deity. The example is given that by watering the roots of a tree the branches, twigs, and all else are nourished. The householders' worship of the deity is like that. If they fail in that duty it is a great fault on their part. If somehow they are not able to worship the deity directly, they should worship the deity in meditation. Worship is of 2 kinds, 1. Pure, and 2. Mixed with fruitive activities. The former is performed by they who have great faith and who desire only to please the Lord. The latter is performed by they who are mostly engaged in material activities, who have only a little faith, and who engage in devotional service from time to time when they feel so inclined. In worship one respectfully requests the Lord to appear, one approaches the Lord, and one serves the Lord with devotion. One sees everything as the Lord's property, one offers various gifts to the Lord, and one offers all that one has to the Lord. In some places it is said that Sudras and other low-class persons are not eligible to worship the Lord. These words refer only to they who are not Vaisnavas. Sutra 66. Consecration of articles of worship, offering nyasas to Lord Kesava, requesting the Lord to appear, accepting the marks of a Vaisnava, wearing flower garlands offered to the Lord, drinking the nectar that has washed the Lord's feet, and following vows are included among the activities of worshipping the Lord. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Isa Upanishad, 18, it is said, O my Lord, powerful as fire, omnipotent one, now I offer you all obeisances and fall on the ground at your feet. O my Lord, please lead me on the right path to reach you, and since you know all that I have done in the past, please free me from the reactions to my past sins, so that there will be no hindrance to my progress. In the Bhagavati it is said, one should worship the Lord, who is like a splendid wheel with 1,000 spokes. In the Chandogya it is said, Yajnavalkya said, for one's own benefit one should lovingly worship Lord Hari. In the Vayu Purana it is said, one should worship the Lord and perform activities that attract him. One should regularly hear from the Puranas and one should regularly worship the Salagrama-sila. Srila Goswami explains, then one should consecrate the articles of worship. One may worship the Lord as one desires, and one may also meditate on becoming one of the Lord's liberated associates. However, one should not meditate on becoming the Lord himself, for that kind of meditation is wrong and impure. One should offer Kesavanyasa and other like offerings. One should bow down before the Lord, meditate on the Lord, chant mantras glorifying the Lord, and touch the deity of the Lord. One should not offer mantras and nidases to the various demigods. One should accept the marks of a Vaisnava, wear flower garlands offered to the Lord, drink the nectar that has washed the Lord's feet, and perform other like activities. These are some of the activities of worship of the Lord. Some other activities of worship are one should study thousands of scriptures, one should observe the vows of Sri Krishna Janmastami, the month of Kartika, and the days of Ekadashi, and one should bathe during the month of Magha. Sutra 67. One may also offer obeisances to the Lord. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 4.3-4, it is said, you are a woman. You are a man. You are a boy. You are a girl. As an old man you walk with a cane. You are born again, O all-pervading Lord. You are the black bee, the green parrot, the red-eyed cuckoo, the storm cloud with lightning, the seasons, and the oceans. You are everywhere. You are beginningless. The worlds are born from you. In the Narayana Vaishastava it is said, how greatly fortunate are they! How fortunate are they! How fortunate are they who bow their heads before Lord Hari's lotus feet! Srila Goswami explains, as with hearing and chanting the Lord's glories, one should not offer obeisances whimsically in whatever way one thinks. There is a specific way. One should bow down with the 8 parts of his body. One should also avoid the offenses that begin with offering obeisances with only one hand, offering obeisances while one's body is completely covered with cloth, offering obeisances while directly facing the Lord, offering obeisances with the left side not facing the deity, and offering obeisances from too close within the deity room. Sutra 68. One may also serve the Lord. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, one should rise and stand before the Lord. Standing before him, one should serve the Lord. Sitting down one should gaze upon the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 7. 9. 17, it is said, O Great One, O Supreme Lord, because of combination with pleasing and displeasing circumstances and because of separation from them, one is placed in a most regrettable position, within heavenly or hellish planets, as if burning in a fire of lamentation. Although there are many remedies by which to get out of miserable life, any such remedies in the material world are more miserable than the miseries themselves. Therefore I think that the only remedy is to engage in your service. Kindly instruct me in such service. Srila Goswami explains, now will be described the condition of being a servant of Lord Vishnu. By worshipping, honoring, and serving the Lord, a person attains perfection. Sutra 69. One may become the Lord's friend. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 4.20, it is said, they become immortal who know the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is not within the perception of material senses, who is not seen by the material eye, whose form in the heart is seen only by the heart of love. In the Mundaka Upanishad, 3. 1. 1, it is said, the Supreme Lord and the individual soul are like two friendly birds. In the Ramarkana Deepika it is said, some who serve the Lord in the temple see the Lord as if he were a human being. They act as if he were their friend or their kinsman. Srila Goswami explains, Taksiya Hitasashanamaya and Bendu Bhavalaksadam. When one loves the Lord as if he were one's friend or kinsman, that love is very auspicious. Sutra 71 may also surrender everything to the Lord. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 2. 5. 15, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the master of all living beings. He is like the hub and all others are like the spokes of the wheel. Everyone should offer themselves to him and surrender to him. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, one who always faithfully offers himself and all that he does to the lotus-eyed Supreme Personality of Godhead, becomes the ruler of the world. Srila Goswami explains, the pure-hearted soul should offer his body and everything else to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one does not do this, but instead acts selfishly for his own benefit, all that he does will become worthless. Srila Yamuna Muni, Sri Stotra Ratna, 49, explains, O Lord, whatever I possess in terms of this body and its paraphernalia and whatever I have from the modes of nature today I offer at your lotus feet. Chapter 3 Obstacles to Spiritual Advancement Sutra 71 10 kinds of offenses should be avoided by one engaged in devotional service. Sadhana Bhakti. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Katha Upanishad, 1. 2. 24, it is said, neither a person who does not avoid sinful deeds, nor a person who is nor peaceful, nor a person who is not serious and diligent, nor a person whose heart is agitated can, even with a great intellectual endeavor, attain the Supreme Lord. In the Katyayana Samhita it is said, even if one is forced to live within a cage of iron or in the midst of a blazing fire, he should accept this position rather than live with non-devotees who are through and through against the supremacy of the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 7. 13. 8, it is said, a sannyasi must not present allurements of material benefits to gather many disciples, nor should he unnecessarily read many books or give discourses as a means of livelihood. He must never attempt to increase material opulences unnecessarily. In Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu it is said, if one cannot attain food or shelter, or if one had them but now they are destroyed, one should, with a peaceful mind, always remember Lord Hari. In the Padma Purana it is said, within the heart of a person who is overpowered by lamentation or anger, there is no possibility of Krishna's being manifested. Krishna, or Hari, is the master of all demigods, and therefore he is always worshipable. But this does not mean that one should not offer respect to the demigods. In the Mahabharata it is said, a person who does not disturb or cause painful action in the mind of any living entity, who treats everyone just like a loving father does his children, whose heart is so pure, certainly becomes very soon favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Varaha Purana it is said, O Earth Goddess, a Vaisnava should always carefully avoid these offenses in devotional service that I have described to you. In the Padma Purana it is said, one who commits offenses to the holy name falls down. One who hears offenses to the Supreme Lord or his devotees loses all his pious deeds and also falls down. Srila Rupa Goswami, in Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, explains, 1. One should rigidly give up the company of non-devotees. 2. One should not instruct a person who is not desirous of accepting devotional service. 3. One should not be very enthusiastic about constructing costly temples or monasteries. 4. One should not try to read too many books, nor should one develop the idea of earning his livelihood by lecturing on or professionally reciting Srimad Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita. 5. One should not be neglectful in ordinary dealings. 6. One should not be under the spell of lamentation in loss or jubilation in gain. 7. One should not disrespect the demigods. 8. One should not give unnecessary trouble to any living entity. 9. One should carefully avoid the various offenses in chanting the holy name of the Lord or in worshipping the deity in the temple. 10. One should be very intolerant toward the blasphemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or his devotees. Without following the above-mentioned 10 principles, one cannot properly elevate himself to the platform of sadhana bhakti, or devotional service in practice. Sutra 72 By engaging in devotional service and by cultivating humbleness, mercy, and proper renunciation, one can avoid the previously described offenses. However, they who follow the fourfold sadhana of the impersonalists or who follow the paths of yoga or karma, cannot become free of these offenses. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad it is said, one should worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If one has no understanding of the Supreme Person, then one will be bewildered. With his body he will commit sins. He will be filled with material desires. In Srimad Bhagavatam is an example of a humble appeal, "Damn very fallen. I shall never see the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead face to face. I am very embarrassed. Oh, how shall I cross the river of material time?" In the Skanda Purana is an example of mercy, "O hunter, good qualities like non-violence, which you have developed, are not very astonishing, for those who are engaged in the Lord's devotional service are never inclined to give pain to others because of envy." In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1. 2. 7, is a description of proper renunciation. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11. 14. 20, is the following criticism of yoga and karma: one may make Krishna the goal of mystic yoga, Sankhya philosophy, etc., yet such activities do not please the Lord as much as direct loving service, which one practices by hearing and chanting about the Lord and executing his mission. In the Skanda Purana it is said, purification of consciousness, purification of bodily activities, austerities, peace of mind, etc., all become automatically manifest in the person who is engaged in devotional service. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Siksautaka 3, explains, one who thinks himself lower than the grass, who is more tolerant than a tree, and who does not expect personal honor but is always prepared to give all respects to others, can very easily always chant the holy name of the Lord. Sutra 73. When devotional service comes to the stage of maturity, all unwanted obstacles cease to exist. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.26. 2. It is said, by performance of yajna one's eatables become sanctified, and by eating sanctified foodstuffs one's very existence becomes purified. By the purification of existence finer tissues in the memory become sanctified, and when memory is sanctified one can think of the path of liberation. In this way Lord Sanat Kumara revealed the spiritual truth, which is on the farther shore of the world of darkness. In Srimad Bhagavatam, January 2, 2016 to 19 and 21, it is said, O twice-born sages, by serving those devotees who are completely freed from all vice, great service is done. By such service one gains affinity for hearing the messages of Vasudeva. Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the Paramatma, Supersoul, in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, cleanses desire for material enjoyment from the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge to hear his messages, which are virtuous when properly heard and chanted. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. As soon as irrevocable loving service is established in the heart the effects of nature's modes of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire, and hankering, disappear from the heart. Then the devotee is established in goodness, and he becomes completely happy. Thus the knot in the heart is pierced, and all misgivings are cut to pieces. The chain of fruitive actions is terminated when one sees the self as master. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.10, it is said, when one is encouraged in devotional service by the association of devotees, one becomes free from all unwanted contamination by following the regulative principles and chanting and hearing. Sutra 74.1. Misidentification of the self, 2. Thirst for material things, 3. Offenses, and 4. Weakness of heart are 4 obstacles on the spiritual path. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Misidentification of the self is described in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6.1. In these words, some thinkers say the material universe is self-manifested. Other bewildered men say time created the universe. Thirst for the temporary and unreal things of this world is described in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 4.22. In these words, they say, the Supreme Lord is the whole world for us. Renouncing the desire to enjoy children, wealth, or anything else in this world, they become sannyasis. They accept alms. They wander over the earth. Offenses are described in the Isa Upanishad in these words, the killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the world of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. Weakness of heart is described in the Katha Upanishad, 2.1.2. In these words, childish fools who desire material pleasures run into the noose set by death. In Srimad Bhagavatam, July 7, 1944-45, it is said, since the body itself is ultimately meant to become stool or earth, what is the meaning of the paraphernalia related to the body, such as wives, residences, wealth, children, relatives, servants, friends, kingdoms, treasuries, animals, and ministers? They are also temporary. What more can be said about this? All this paraphernalia is very near and dear as long as the body exists, but as soon as the body is destroyed, all things related to the body are also finished. Therefore, actually one has nothing to do with them, but because of ignorance one accepts them as valuable. Compared to the ocean of eternal happiness, they are most insignificant. What is the use of such insignificant relationships for the eternal living being? In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.29, it is said, there are many philosophical speculators, Jnadnis, belonging to the Mayavada school who consider themselves liberated and call themselves Narayana. However, their intelligence is not purified unless they engage in Krishna's devotional service. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.140, It is said, if a person gives up all material desires and completely engages in the transcendental loving service of Krishna, as enjoined in revealed scriptures, he is never indebted to demigods, sages, or forefathers. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita it is also said, one should be careful not to commit offenses to devotional service and to the holy name of the Lord. Sutra 75 By engaging in the activities of devotional service and by the mercy of the spiritual master one becomes free of all these obstacles and one also becomes expert in devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Prajna Upanishad, 3.2-6.8, it is said, then he said to him, you ask many questions, but because you are devoted to the Supreme Lord, I shall answer them. After hearing the answers to all their questions, the students worshipped the sage and said, you are a father. You have taken us to the farther shore of this ocean of ignorance. We offer our obeisances to the great sages. We offer our obeisances to the great sages. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 7.30, it is said, one must accept the bona fide spiritual master and render service unto him with great devotion and faith. Whatever one has in one's possession should be offered to the spiritual master, and in the association of saintly persons and devotees one should worship the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam, November 14, 2025-26, Lord Krishna explains, just as gold, when smelted in fire, gives up its impurities and returns to its pure brilliant state, similarly, the spirit soul, absorbed in the fire of bhakti yoga, is purified of all contamination caused by previous fruitive activities and returns to its original position of serving me in the spiritual world. When a diseased eye is treated with medicinal ointment, it gradually recovers its power to see. Similarly, as a conscious living entity cleanses himself of material contamination by hearing and chanting the pious narrations of my glories, he regains his ability to see me, the absolute truth, in my subtle spiritual form. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.45, it is said, by good fortune, one becomes eligible to cross the ocean of nesads, and when one's term of material existence decreases, one may get an opportunity to associate with pure devotees. By such association one's attraction to Krishna is awakened. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.47, it is said, Krishna is situated in everyone's heart as Katya Guru, the spiritual master within. When he is kind to some fortunate conditioned soul, he personally gives one lessons to progress in devotional service, instructing the person as the supersoul within and the spiritual master without. Chapter 4 Bhajana Krama Prakarana The Stages of Devotional Service Sutra 76 Then one attains faith in devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.21, it is said, the sage said, when one stands in the spiritual truth, he can have faith. One who does not stand in the truth cannot have faith. Therefore, you should try to understand faith. Then the student replied, O Master, I wish to understand faith. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11.23.58, it is said, he shall cross over the insurmountable ocean of nescience by being firmly fixed in the service of the lotus feet of Krishna. This was approved by the previous acharyas, who were fixed in firm devotion to the Lord, Paramatma, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Srila Nautama Thakur sings, rejecting all other desires, and abandoning philosophical speculation and fruitive work, in the company of the devotees, will worship and serve Lord Krishna with my body and mind. Will not worship the demigods and demigoddesses. Devotional service is the reason for my life. Srila Kaviraja Misra explains, he may show me his own kingdom, or he may make me suffer the threefold miseries. Whether I suffer or enjoy, I pray that Lord Kesava never abandon me. Sutra 77 An attraction is manifested. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.21. 1. It is said, the sage said, one who performs spiritual activities becomes situated in the truth. One who does not perform spiritual activities does not become situated in the truth. One who performs spiritual activities becomes situated in the truth. Therefore one should try to understand spiritual activities. Then the student replied, O Master, do wish to understand spiritual activities? In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1.5.26, it is said, O Vyasadeva, in that association and by the mercy of those great Vedantists, I could hear them describe the attractive activities of Lord Krishna. And thus listening attentively, my taste for hearing of the personality of Godhead increased at every step. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, then one develops love and attraction for the Lord. Srila Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya explains, I prayed that Lord Krishna, the mischievous youth who is a flood of handsomeness, who is waves of sweet charm, and who is the heart of mercy, may appear before me. O Lord, I pray that, may take birth again and again in a place where my ears may drink the sweet music of your flute. What is the use of talking to me about impersonal liberation? Srila Madhavendra Puri explains, those devoted to poetry may praise the nectar of poetry, and those devoted to Vedic study may praise the nectar of impersonal Brahman. We shall praise neither. We shall simply take shelter of a flutist who wears a Gaiya necklace. Sutra 78. Then attachment is manifest. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.22. 1. It is said, the sage said, one who performs spiritual activities attains happiness. One who does not perform spiritual activities does not attain happiness. Becoming happy in this way, one continues his spiritual activities. Therefore you should try to understand the nature of the spiritual happiness attained in this way. In Srimad Bhagavatam, January 6, 2026-27, it is said, thus I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are benedictory. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. And so, O Brahmana Vyasadeva, in due course of time one, who was fully absorbed in thinking of Krishna and who therefore had no attachments, being completely freed from all material taints, met with death, as lightning and illumination occur simultaneously. Srila Haridasa explains, enough of this talk about celestial planets. What is the use of a great kingdom on the earth? Even the opulence of liberation should go far away from me. In the groves by the Yamuna shore a person whose dark complexion is like a young tamala tree has now stolen my heart. Srila Raghupati Upadhyaya explains, to whom can I speak who will believe me when I say that Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is hunting the gopas in the bushes by the banks of the river Yamuna? In this way the Lord demonstrates his pastimes. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, 23.12, it is said, after taste is awakened, a deep attachment arises. Sutra 79. Then ecstatic love is manifest. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.23. 1. It is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is filled with bliss. His bliss is not small. His bliss is very great. You should try to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In this Fetasvatara Upanishad, 5.14, it is said, by knowing the auspicious Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is attained only by love, who is not material, who is the creator and destroyer of the worlds, and who is the creator of time, the individual souls become free from having to accept another material body. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, having achieved love of Godhead, the devotees sometimes cry out loud, absorbed in thought of the infallible Lord. Sometimes they laugh, feel great pleasure, speak out loud to the Lord, dance, or sing. Such devotees, having transcended material conditioned life, sometimes imitate the unborn Supreme by acting out his pastimes. And sometimes, achieving his personal audience, they remain peaceful and silent. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.12, it is said, from that attachment the seed of love for Krishna grows in the heart. In the words of some Vaisnavas it is said, the talkative people will rebuke us. Is it not? We do not care. We will drink the liquor of love for Lord Hari. We will become completely intoxicated. We will roll about on the ground. We will dance. We will experience ecstasy. Srila Kavirtna explains, my mind never prays for the post of an earthly king. The post of King Indra does not appeal to it. It does not like the yogic perfections. It does not yearn after liberation. It only runs after the pure Supreme Brahman, who, bound by the creeper of a gopi's arm, appears like a dark rain cloud and a stationary flash of lightning in the forest by the Yamuna's shore. Srila Sridhara Swami explains, O Lord, the saintly devotees, who happily play in the nectar ocean of the narration of your glories, consider the four purusarthas, material piety, economic development, sense gratification, and liberation, to be as insignificant as a blade of grass. Srila Govinda Misra explains, Madhura is in my ears. Madhura is in my eyes. Madhura is in my voice. Madhura is in my heart. Madhura is before me. Madhura is behind me. Madhura is sweet. Madhura is sweet. Srila Ripaka Goswami, Sti Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu January 3, 2025-26, explains, when the seed of ecstatic emotion for Krishna fructifies, the following 9 symptoms manifest in one's behavior: forgiveness, concern that time should not be wasted, detachment, absence of false prestige, hope, eagerness, a taste for chanting the holy name of the Lord, attachment to descriptions of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, and affection for those places where the Lord resides, that is, a temple or a holy place like Vrindavana. These are called anubhava, subordinate signs of ecstatic emotion. They are visible in a person in whose heart the seed of love of God has begun to fructify. Sri Amnaya Sutra Part 1 Chapter 1 Bhaktivedanta Prakarana, the Master of all Potencies, Sutra 1. We will speak. Now we will speak the Amnaya Sutra. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. Bowing down before Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya, the teacher of the entire world, a certain person named Bhaktivinoda, by the grace of the Vaisnavas and by the order of the great souls, has composed 130 sutras describing the final conclusion of the Vedas, a conclusion attained by studying the 8 sources of evidence, the 6 signs, and the direct and indirect interpretation of words. May all the Vaisnavas who serve Lord Chaitanya's feet study these sutras. Sutra 2. The Absolute Truth is one without a second. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, O gentle one, in the beginning only the Absolute Truth, who is one without a second, existed. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad it is said, the personality Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as complete wholes. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete in itself. Because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2. 9. 33, it is said, Brahma, it is I, the personality of Godhead, who was existing before the creation, when there was nothing but myself. Nor was there the material nature, the cause of this creation. That which you see now is also I, the personality of Godhead, and after annihilation what remains will also be I, the personality of Godhead. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 20.152, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, O Sanatana, please hear about the eternal form of Lord Krishna. He is the absolute truth, devoid of duality but present in Vrindavana as the son of Nanda Maharaja. Sutra 3. He is inconceivable potencies eternally. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Svetasvatara Upanishad it is said, the Supreme Lord is the oldest, the original person. His powers are inconceivable. Everything is his potency. He is the supreme controller, the supersoul in everyone's heart. He alone has entered the hearts of all the demigods. In the Hyastrasapaphikaratra it is said, Lord Hari is the supreme personality of Godhead and the goddess of fortune is his transcendental potency. He is the supreme god and she the supreme goddess. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, the supreme personality of Godhead has many inconceivable potencies, all manifested from his transcendental form. As heat is not different from fire, so the Lord's potencies are not different from the Lord himself. Sutra 4. He has a variety of transcendental qualities eternally. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 6.6, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is not touched by the material nature, and he is free from the entanglement of the complex tree of material time. He is the origin of the material creation, and it is due to him only that everything changes. He is the protector of religion and the annihilator of all sinful activities. He is the master of all opulences, and everything rests within him. He is the supersoul present in everyone's heart. Those who understand and worship him become free from the cycle of birth and death in the material world and return to the eternal spiritual world. The word Bhagavan means that the Supreme Personality of Godhead has all knowledge, strength, wealth, fame, beauty, and renunciation, and no faults. Srila Rupa Goswami, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2. 1. 37, explains, these 5 qualities that jivas cannot possess but that demigods like Shiva can, as well as all Vishnu tattvas, are, 1. Always being situated in one's original position, 2. Being omniscient, 3. Being always fresh and youthful, 4. Being the concentrated form of eternity, knowledge, and bliss, and 5. Possessing all mystic perfection. Sutra 5. He also has no qualities eternally. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Katha Upanishad, 1. 3. 15, it is said, by understanding the Supreme, who has no sound, no touch, no form, no death, no taste, no scent, no beginning, and no end, and who is eternal and greater than the greatest, one is rescued from the jaws of death. In the Harivamsa it is said, O Burda, what you see is effulgent Supreme Braham. Am that eternal Braham. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 6.141, explains, wherever there is an impersonal description in the Vedas mean to establish that everything belonging to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is transcendental and free of mundane characteristics. Sutra 6. Because he has inconceivable potencies, it is proper that he has these mutually contradictory natures. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Svetasvatara Upanishad, 3.19, it is said, learned transcendentalists explain that God is the greatest, the original person. He has no material hands, but he can take anything. He has no material legs, but he can travel faster than anyone. He has no material eyes, but he sees everything. He has no material ears, but he hears everything. He knows everything, but no one knows him. In the Kitrama Purana it is said, because he has inconceivable powers, the Supreme Personality of Godhead has many mutually contradictory qualities. There is never any fault in this. Srila Jayartha Muni explains, it is not merely that, in general, the Supreme Lord has wonderful powers, it is that always and in every circumstance his power and glory are wonderful. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who possesses all transcendental qualities, is not different from his many qualities and glories. He has a form, and yet he has no form. He is all-pervading, and yet he stands in one place. He is a great treasure house of limitless and mutually contradictory transcendental qualities. Sutra 7. Because the Lord's feature without qualities cannot be perceived, his feature with qualities is more important. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Revata Samhita it is said, just as the sun's rays in the sky are extended to the mundane vision, so in the same way the wise and learned devotees always see the supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. Because those highly praiseworthy and spiritually awake Brahmanas are able to see the spiritual world, they are also able to reveal that supreme abode of Lord Vishnu. In the Varaha Purana it is said, all the varied expansions of the personality of Godhead are transcendental and eternal, and all of them repeatedly descend to all the different universes of the material creation. Their bodies, composed of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, are everlasting. There is no chance of their decaying, for they are not creations of the material world. Their forms are concentrated spiritual existence, always complete with all spiritual qualities and devoid of material contamination. All the forms of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are full of knowledge and bliss. The Supreme Personality of Godhead and his forms are never different. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is never different from any of his forms. He is the shelter of the effulgent impersonal Brahman, which is the light emanating from his transcendental form. Sutra 8. He has four manifestations, 1. His original form, 2. The forms of his direct expansions, 3. The individual spirit souls, and 4. The world of matter. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. The Supreme Lord, the creator of the cosmic manifestation, knows every nook and corner of his creation. Although he is the cause of creation, there is no cause for his appearance. He is fully aware of everything. He is the Supersoul, the master of all transcendental qualities, and he is the master of this cosmic manifestation in regard to bondage to the conditional state of material existence and liberation from that bondage. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, thus he fixed his mind, perfectly engaging it by linking it in devotional service, bhakti yoga, without any tinge of materialism, and thus he saw the absolute personality of Godhead along with his external energy, which was under full control. Due to this external energy, the living entity, although transcendental to the three modes of material nature, thinks of himself as a material product and thus undergoes the reactions of material miseries. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is one, by his inconceivable potencies he always has four manifestations, 1. His original form, 2. The forms of his direct expansions, 3. The individual spirit souls, and 4. The world of matter. Sutra 9. Everything is inconceivably different and not different from him. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Katha Upanishad, 2.12. It is said, wise men who in their hearts see the one Supreme Personality of Godhead, who becomes many and enters everyone's heart, attain eternal bliss. Others cannot. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time they do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. In the Padma Purana it is said, with the help of his inconceivable mystic potency, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is no material body, becomes many and enjoys pastimes. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, everything is inconceivably different and not different from the Supreme Lord. Part 2 Description of the Means of Spiritual Attainment Chapter 1 Determination of what is the means of spiritual attainment Sutra 51 Some say that the performance of regular duties is the means of spiritual attainment. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mundaka Upanishad, 1.2.1, it is said, that is the Supreme. The wise see him in the Vedic mantras. Therefore one should perform the many rituals in the three Vedas. They are the path of spiritual attainment in this world. In the Bhagavad Gita, 3.8 and 19, Lord Krishna explains, perform your prescribed duty, for doing so is better than not working. One cannot even maintain one's physical body without work. Therefore, without being attached to the fruits of activities, one should act as a matter of duty, for by working without attachment one attains the Supreme. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 24.214, it is said, those who are in the bodily conception mainly engage in fruitive activity. Those who perform yajnas and ritualistic ceremonies are also considered in the same category. However, when they are all in contact with the pure devotee, they give up their fruitive activity and fully engage in the service of the Lord. Sutra 52 Others say that the theory of monism is the means of spiritual attainment. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad Cit is said, the Supreme is everything. He is the truth. O Svedikatu, you are He. In the Mundaka Upanishad, 3.2.7, it is said, then the conscious soul and all he has done become one with the unchanging Supreme. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad it is said, the Supreme is the impersonal Brahman. In the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, Brahman is one without a second. Yam that Brahman. In the Aitareya Upanishad, 5.3, it is said, the conscious Brahman is one. It is not many. In the Astavakra Satin 6 Hita it is said, what are the worms in this world of birth and death? What is love? What is hatred? What is the individual person? What is the Supreme? These are all illusions. Sri Vijayana Bhikshu explains, the Supreme is the only reality. Nothing else can be seen in this world. Everything else is like the silver imagined to glitter on a seashell, or like a mirage in the desert. Sri Sankaracharya explains, when a person mistakes a rope for a snake, he becomes afraid. In the same way the individual soul does not understand the truth of his own identity, and for this reason he becomes afraid. When the soul understands, I am not an individual soul. I am the Supreme Soul, then he becomes free from all fears. Sutra 53 When fruitive work is performed to gain piety, piety is employed to foster renunciation, and renunciation is employed to gain the nectar of spiritual bliss, then fruitive work can be a secondary tool for attaining success in spiritual life. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Isa Upanishad, 15, it is said, O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Please remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, one who does not perform pious deeds, who is not inclined to renunciation, and who does not travel to holy places of pilgrimage, is already dead, even though he seems to live. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1.5.34, it is said, thus when all a man's activities are dedicated to the service of the Lord, those very activities which caused his perpetual bondage become the destroyer of the tree of work. Srila Ramanujakaryan explains, O great souls, please do not think that fruitive work is the primary way to attain spiritual advancement. Fruitive work is only a servant to the real way. That is the opinion of the Supreme Lord Himself. Sutra 54 When it is employed in the proper way to attain the nectar of spiritual bliss, the path of knowledge can be a secondary tool to attain spiritual realization. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad it is said, a Brahmana should employ his intelligence to understand the Supreme. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11.19.5, Lord Krishna explains, therefore, my dear Uddhava, through knowledge you should understand your actual self. Then, advancing by clear realization of Vedic knowledge, you should worship me in the mood of loving devotion. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 24.109 and 113, it is said, one cannot attain liberation simply through philosophical speculation devotion of devotional service. However, if one renders devotional service, he is automatically on the Brahman platform. Although Sukadeva Goswami and the four Kumaras were always absorbed in the thought of impersonal Brahman were thus Brahmavadis, they were nonetheless attracted by the transcendental pastimes and qualities of Krishna. Therefore they later became devotees of Krishna. Sutra 55 The fortunate souls say that the path of spiritual variety is the true means of spiritual attainment. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Prajna Upanishad, 1.16, it is said, They attain the pure spiritual world, where there are no lies and no illusions. In the Mathura-sruti it is said, devotional service reveals the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes conquered by devotional service. In Srimad Bhagavatam, March 25, 1934-35, the Supreme Lord explains, a pure devotee, who is attached to the activities of devotional service and who always engages in the service of my lotus feet, never desires to become one with me. Such a devotee, who is unflinchingly engaged, always glorifies my pastimes and activities. O my mother, my devotees always see the smiling face of my form, with eyes like the rising morning sun. They like to see my various transcendental forms, which are all benevolent, and they also talk favorably with me. Srila Bhaktivinoda explains, the eternally liberated souls enjoy the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is described by the 5 Upanishads, whose form is splendid and transcendental, who is not touched by matter, and who cannot be seen by material eyes. Part 3 Description of the Final Goal Chapter 1 What is the final goal? Sutra 80 The dull material world, which is made of ignorance, is not the final goal. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 7.24. 2. It is said, people say that wealth is the possession of many cows, horses, elephants, gold, servants, wives, fields, and houses. I do not say these things are wealth. Wealth is something else. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 2.1. 39, it is said, one should concentrate his mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who alone distributes himself in so many manifestations just as ordinary persons create thousands of manifestations in dreams. One must concentrate the mind on him, the only all-blissful absolute truth. Otherwise one will be misled and will cause one's own degradation. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, the conditioned soul is overpowered by the illusory potency Maya. He forgets his original spiritual identity, accepts the illusions Maya places before him, and thus suffers in a world of repeated birth and death that seems to have no beginning. Sutra 81 Varietyless impersonal liberation is not the final goal either. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, then the soul transcends that effulgent sky and approaches the effulgent form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the soul again manifests his original spiritual form. In this Fedavattara Upanishad, 6.15, it is said, they who know the Supreme Personality of Godhead cross beyond death. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, O Supreme Lord, the great souls do not yearn to attain impersonal liberation. They taste the nectar ocean of your transcendental pastimes. They are like cooing swans playing at the lotus flower of your feet. Srila Gaudaparnananda explains, the word Tat means the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is a nectar ocean of transcendental bliss. The word Tvam means the individual spirit soul who suffers greatly and whose heart trembles in fear of a host of material troubles. These two are not one. They are different. That is the truth. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is he who should be served by all the worlds. You are his servant. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is the creator of everything, including the 3 worlds, the sun, the moon, and everything else. He is never agitated or unhappy. In time the entire material world enters into him. Even the demigod Brahma and all the Vedas have not the power to describe all his glories. He is the supreme controller and he is beyond the touch of the modes of material nature. Why do you repeat to me that slogan Soham, one am the Supreme? Why do you wish to turn me into an unfortunate wretch? Sutra 82 Although realization of the impersonal aspect of the Supreme is not the final goal, it is sometimes a useful intermediary stage. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura that the realization of the impersonal aspect of the Supreme is sometimes useful at a certain stage of spiritual development is seen in the following scriptural passages beginning with these words of the Isa Upanishad, 7, one who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks, in quality one with the Lord, becomes a true knower of things. What, then, can be illusion or anxiety for him? In the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, O Svedakatu, you are the same. In the Gopalatapani Upanishad it is said, one should think, in quality I am one with Lord Gopala. In the Nrsimha 6 Hatapani Upanishad it is said, then one enters into the Supreme. That realization of the impersonal aspect of the Supreme is not essential and may be neglected entirely is seen in the following scriptural passages beginning with these words of Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 14. 3. O my Lord Krishna, a devotee who abandons the path of empiric philosophical speculation aimed at merging in the existence of the Supreme and engages himself in hearing your glories and activities from a bona fide sadhu, or saint, and who lives an honest life in the occupational engagement of his social life, can conquer your sympathy and mercy, even though you are Jita, or unconquerable. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 6.175, explains, the subsidiary vibration Tattvamasi, you are the same, is meant for the understanding of the living entity, but the principal vibration is Omkara. Not caring for Omkara, Sankaracharya has stressed the vibration Tattvamasi. Sutra 83. But the intermediate stage of impersonalism is not always recommended. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Isa Upanishad, 12, it is said, those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal Absolute. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 14. 4, it is said, my dear Lord, devotional service unto you is the only auspicious path. If one gives it up simply for speculative knowledge or the understanding that these living beings are spirit souls and the material world is false, he undergoes a great deal of trouble. He only gains troublesome and inauspicious activities. His endeavors are like beating a husk that is already devoid of rice. One's labor becomes fruitless. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 2. 32, it is also said, O lotus-eyed Lord, although non-devotees who accept severe austerities and penances to achieve the highest position may think themselves liberated, their intelligence is impure. They fall down from their position of imagined superiority because they have no regard for your lotus feet. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.29, it is said, there are many philosophical speculators, jitnis, belonging to the Mayavada school who consider themselves liberated and call themselves Narayana. However, their intelligence is not purified unless they engage in Krishna's devotional service. Sutra 84, the state of spiritual variety is the final stage of spiritual advancement. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 8.1.2-3, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who resides in the spiritual sky, and the individual spiritual soul, who resides in the sky of the heart, may both move among the spiritual and material worlds. They both may enter Agnaloka, Vayuloka, the sun, the moon, the stars, and the lightning. They may enter the spiritual world, which is real, and the material world, which is not an eternal reality. In Sti Brahma Samhita, 5.29, it is said, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows yielding all desire, in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, and always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis, or Gopas. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 20.155, it is said, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead is Krishna. His original name is Govinda. He is full of all opulences, and his eternal abode is known as Goloka Vrindavana. Chapter 2 Fervent or Continuous Ecstasy Sutra 85 When spiritual love increases it reaches the stage called Rati. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is everything. One who sees Him, glorifies Him, and understands Him, attains spiritual love, Rati, enjoys spiritual pastimes, becomes the Lord's personal associate, is filled with spiritual bliss, is independent, and can go wherever he likes. In the Bhagavad Gita, 3.17, Lord Krishna explains, but for one who takes pleasure, Rati, in the self, whose human life is one of self-realization, and who is satisfied in the self-one, fully satiated, for whom there is no duty. In the Agni Purana it is said, when spiritual love increases it becomes Rati. Rati arouses the mellows of conjugal love for Lord Krishna. Srila Ripakasvami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu, 1. 3. 1 and 4, explains, when devotional service is situated on the transcendental platform of pure goodness it is like a ray of the sunlight of love for Krishna. At such a time devotional service causes the heart to be softened by various tastes, and it is called bhava, emotion. At that time Lord Krishna reveals his splendid original form, manifested in the devotee's meditation. Sutra 86 When Rati becomes especially splendid and blissful, and when it is passionately directed to Lord Krishna alone, it becomes Priti. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad, 3. 6. 1, it is said, then he understood that the Supreme is bliss. From the blissful Supreme everything is born. By the power of the blissful Supreme everything lives. Everything enters the blissful Supreme. In the Vishnu Purana it is said, O Lord, I pray that wherever I go for my next 1,000 births I may always have unalloyed love for you, the infallible Supreme Personality of Godhead. O Lord, I pray that I may always remember you. I pray that the love that fools feel for material objects I may feel for you. I pray that love will never leave my heart. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.13, it is said, when that ecstatic emotional stage intensifies, it is called love of Godhead. Such love is life's ultimate goal and the reservoir of all pleasure. Sutra 87. When it is very intense, and when the lover becomes very possessive of the beloved, Preeti becomes prema. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Katha Upanishad, 1. 2. 23, it is said, the Supreme Lord is not attained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is attained only by one who he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. In the Gopalotapani Upanishad it is said, free from material desires, the sages always strive to attain Lord Vishnu's supreme abode. Lord Vishnu, in his original form as a cowherd boy, appears before them and shows them his own abode. In Sri Narada Pankaratra it is said, when one develops an unflinching sense of ownership or possessiveness in relation to Lord Vishnu, or, in other words, when one thinks Vishnu and no one else to be the only object of love, such an awakening is called bhakti, devotion, by exalted persons like Bhisma, Prahalada, Uddhava, and Narada. Srila Bhaktivinoda, Sri Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu 1. 4. 1, explains, when the heart is completely softened and devoid of all material desires and when one's emotional feelings become very strong, one becomes very much attached to Krishna. Such purified emotion is known as pure love. Sutra 88. When the love becomes intimate and lover confident of his position, prema becomes pranaya. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad, 2. 7. 2, it is said, taking shelter of the Supreme, who is invisible to material eyes, not a material person, indescribable by material words, and without a material home, the living entity becomes fearless. He becomes fearless. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 18. 24, it is said, defeated, Lord Krishna carried Sridhama. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu 3. 3. 108, explains, when there is full knowledge of Krishna's superiority and yet in dealings with him on friendly terms respectfulness is completely absent, that stage is called affection. Sutra 89. When the dim reflection of crookedness is present, and when the love is both wonderful and pleasing, pranaya becomes mana, jealous anger. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad, 3. 10. 4, it is said, one should worship him as the Supreme Mind. Filled with jealous anger, one may worship him. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, sometimes there would be knitting of the eyebrows. They were overcome with feelings of love. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sri Ujjvala Nilamani, Srimgara Beta Kathana, 102, explains, the progress of loving affairs between young couples is like the movement of a snake. On account of this two types of anger arise between young couples, anger with cause and anger without cause. Sutra 90. When the heart melts, prema becomes sneha. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadranyaka Upanishad, 1. 4. 8, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is more dear than sons, more dear than wealth, more dear than anything. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, gazing, they were overcome with love. They went here and there. Eager to see Devaki's son, the women ran from their rooms. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 3.143-144, it is said, understanding that Lord Chaitanya had accepted the renounced order of life, Sasamata, crying, said to the Lord, my darling Nimai, do not be cruel like Visvarti your elder brother. Mother Sasi continued, after accepting the renounced order Visvaripa never again gave me audience. If you do like him, that will certainly be the death of me. Sutra 91. When the lover's desires are strong, sneha becomes raga. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadranyaka Upanishad, it is said, if a person knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead and says, here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, why would he desire to cling to this material body? In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1. 8. 25, Queen Kundi tells Lord Krishna, I wish that all those calamities may happen again and again so that we could see you again and again, for seeing you means that we will no longer see repeated births and deaths. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, 3.143-145, it is said, since Jagannath Puri and Navadvipa are intimately related, as if they were two rooms in the same house, people from Navadvipa generally go to Jagannath Puri, and those from Jagannath Puri go to Navadvipa. This going and coming will help carry news of Lord Chaitanya. In this way I will be able to get news of him. All you devotees will be able to come and go, and sometimes he may also come to take his bath in the Ganges. I do not care for my personal happiness or unhappiness, but only for his happiness. Indeed, I accept his happiness as my happiness. Sutra 92. When the feelings between the lover and beloved are newer and newer at every moment, raga becomes anuraga. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Taittiriya Upanishad it is said, the sage always yearns to leave this material world and approach the blissful Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, although again and again we meet him in a secluded place, his feet are always filled with newer and newer bliss. What woman could leave his feet? Even the goddess of fortune never leaves his feet. Srila Vasudeva Gosa explains, Sutra 93. When it is intoxicated with wonders that have no equal or superior, anuraga becomes mahabhava. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Mundaka Upanishad, 3.2.8, it is said, as flowing rivers abandon their names and forms and enter the great ocean, so the enlightened soul abandons his material name and form and meets the effulgent Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10.19, 16, it is said, gazing at Lord Krishna, the gopis became filled with bliss. A moment without him seemed like 100 yugas. Srila Rupa Goswami explains, among the most exalted of liberated souls, love for Lord Krishna becomes intensified to the stage known as Mahabhava. Chapter 3. Rasa Prakarana. The Rasas. Sutra 94. When it is nourished by various samagras, ingredients, rati becomes rasa, nectar mellows. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Taittiriya Upanishad, 2.7.1, it is said, when one understands the personality of God, the reservoir of pleasure, Krishna, he actually becomes transcendentally blissful. In the Agni Purana it is said, there is no nectar, rasa, that is empty of love, and there is no love that is empty of nectar. Love creates nectar. Nectar creates love. Srila Bharata Muni explains, ecstatic love creates nectar, rasa. That is the proof that love and nectar are not different. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.180-182, it is said, all these stages combined are called sthai-bhava, or continuous love of Godhead and devotional service. In addition to these stages there are Vibhava and Anubhava. Satvika Vyabhikari Bhaviramilane Krishna Bhakti Rasaha and Amrita Asvadin. When the higher standard of ecstatic love is mixed with the symptoms of Satvika and Vyabhikari, the devotee relishes the bliss of loving Krishna in a variety of nectarian tastes. These tastes are like a combination of yogurt, sugar candy, ghee, clarified butter, black pepper, and camphor, and are as palatable as sweet nectar. Sutra 95. The primary rasas are 5, and the secondary rasas are 7. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 4.4.17, it is said, a wise man understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is worshipped by the devotees in the 5 rasas. Understanding him, the wise man becomes immortal. He attains the nectar of transcendental bliss. In the Varaha Purana it is said, in many ways the Vedas glorify Lord Hari, who is loved as the devotee's son, brother, friend, master, and husband. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, the transcendental mellows derived from devotional service are also of 5 varieties. Sutra 96. The first rasa is Dalaranta rasa, neutrality. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Chandogya Upanishad, 3.14.1, it is said, saying, the Supreme is everything, the devotee in Santa Rasa worships the Lord. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, the peaceful, pure-hearted, celibate sages go to the spiritual world, the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.189, it is said, examples of Sanabhaktas are the 9 Yogandras and the 4 Kumaras. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.54, it is said, the position of neutrality increases up to the point where one can appreciate love of Godhead. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.211, it is said, when one is fully attached to Krishna's lotus feet, one attains the samadhi stage. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.215, it is said, a person situated on the Santa Rasa platform manifests the 2 transcendental qualities of detachment from all material desire and full attachment to Krishna. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.217-218, it is said, these 2 qualities of the Santa stage spread through the lives of all devotees. They are like the quality of sound in the sky. Sound vibration is found in all material elements. It is the nature of Santa Rasa that not even the smallest intimacy exists. Rather, knowledge of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma is prominent. Sutra 97. The next rasa is Dasya Rasa, servitorship. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Agnivsma it is said, the individual spirit souls are part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but still they are different from Him. They are all His servants. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11:29. 4, it is said, My dear infallible Lord, it is not very astonishing that you intimately approach your servants who have taken exclusive shelter of you. After all, during your appearance as Lord Ramacandra, even while great demigods like Lord Brahma were vying to place the effulgent tips of their helmets upon the cushion where your lotus feet rested, you displayed special affection for monkeys such as Hanuman because they had taken exclusive shelter of you. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11:6, 46, it is also said, My dear Lord, the garlands, scented substances, garments, ornaments, and other such things that have been offered to you may later be used by your servants. By partaking of these things and eating the remnants of food you have left, we will be able to conquer the illusory energy. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.189, it is said, examples of devotees in Dasya Bhakti are innumerable, for such devotees exist everywhere. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.219-220, it is said, on the platform of Santa Rasa one only realizes his constitutional position. However, when one is raised to the platform of Dasya Rasa, he better understands the full opulence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. On the Dasya Rasa platform knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is revealed with awe and veneration. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.221, it is said, the qualities of Santa Rasa are also present in Dasya Rasa, but service is added. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.54, it is said, the mellow of servitorship gradually increases to the point of spontaneous love of Godhead. Sutra 98. The next rasa is Sakya Rasa, friendship. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Mundaka Upanishad, 3.1.1, it is said, the individual spirit soul and the supersoul, Supreme Personality of Godhead, are like two friendly birds sitting on the same tree. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 13.5-6, it is said, My dear friends, just see how this riverbank is extremely beautiful because of its pleasing atmosphere. And just see how the blooming lotuses are attracting bees and birds by their aroma. The humming and chirping of the bees and birds is echoing throughout the beautiful trees in the forest. Also, here the sands are clean and soft. Therefore this must be considered the best place for our sporting and pastimes. I think we should take our lunch here, since we are already hungry because the time is very late. Here the calves may drink water and go slowly here and there and eat the grass. In the Valmiki Ramayana it is said, I am the dear friend of Rama. When he sleeps with Sita by his side, will guard him. I will stand there, surrounded by my kinsmen, and a bow in my hand. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.190, it is said, in Vrindavana examples of devotees in fraternity are Sridama and Sudama. In Dwaraka the Lord's friends are Bhima and Arjuna. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.222-223, it is said, the qualities of Santa Rasa and the service of Dasya Rasa are both present on the platform of Sakya Rasa. On the platform of fraternity the qualities of Dasya Rasa are mixed with the confidence of fraternity instead of awe and veneration. On the Sakya Rasa platform the devotee sometimes offers the Lord service and sometimes makes Krishna serve him in exchange. In their mock fighting the cowherd boys would sometimes climb on Krishna's shoulders and sometimes they would make Krishna climb on their shoulders. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.55, it is said, after the mellows of servitorship there are the mellows of friendship and paternal love, which increase to subordinate spontaneous love. The greatness of the love found in friends like Subala extends to the standard of ecstatic love of Godhead. Sutra 99. The next rasa is Vatsalya Rasa, parental love. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Parasrayana Sruti it is said, the living entity who is born and dies in this world is in truth a part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He can be the Supreme Lord's father, son, brother, or friend. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10.13, 22, it is said, the mothers of the boys, upon hearing the sounds of the flutes and bugles being played by their sons, immediately rose from their household tasks, lifted their boys onto their laps, embraced them with both arms, and began to feed them with their breast milk, which flowed forth with extreme love specifically for Krishna. Actually Krishna is everything, but at that time, expressing extreme love and affection, they took special pleasure in feeding Krishna, the Para-Brahman, and Krishna drank the milk from his respective mothers as if it were a nectarian beverage. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.190, it is said, in Vrindavana the devotees in parental love are Mother Yasoda and Father Nanda Maharaja, and in Dwaraka the Lord's parents are Vasudeva and Devaki. There are also other superior persons who are devotees in parental love. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.226-228, it is said, on the platform of parental love the qualities of Santarasa, Dasarasa, and Sakyarasa are transformed into a form of service called maintenance. The essence of fraternal love is intimacy devoid of the formality and veneration found in the Dasya-rasa. Due to a greater sense of intimacy, the devotee functioning in paternal love chastises and rebukes the Lord in an ordinary way. On the platform of paternal love, the devotee considers himself the Lord's maintainer. Thus the Lord is an object of maintenance, like a son, and therefore this mellow is full of the four qualities of Santarasa, Dasya-rasa, fraternity, and parental love. This is more transcendental nectar. Sutra 100. The next rasa is Madhura rasa, conjugal love. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Brihadranyaka Upanishad it is said, embraced by his beloved, the Supreme Personality of Godhead knows nothing else within or without. Filled with spiritual bliss, he knows nothing else within or without. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 33. 25, it is said, although the Gopas were firmly attached to Lord Krishna, whose desires are always fulfilled, the Lord was not internally affected by any mundane sex desire. Still, to perform his pastimes the Lord took advantage of all those moonlit autumn nights, which inspire poetic descriptions of transcendental affairs. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 19.231, 232, 234, it is said, on the platform of conjugal love, attachment to Krishna, rendering service unto him, the relaxed feelings of fraternity, and the feelings of maintenance all increase in intimacy. On the platform of conjugal love the devotee offers his body in the service of the Lord. Thus on this platform all five transcendental qualities are present. Similarly, on the platform of conjugal love all the feelings of the devotees are amalgamated. The intensified taste is certainly wonderful. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.57-58, it is said, only in the conjugal mellow are there two ecstatic symptoms called Ruda, advanced, and Adhurta, highly advanced. Highly advanced ecstasy is divided into two categories, Madana and Mohana. Meeting together is called Madana, and separation is called Mohana. Sutra 101. Each of these primary rasas is more glorious than the previous rasa. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Brihadranyaka Upanishad, 4. 8, it is said, the ancient and subtle spiritual path has touched me. Now I understand it. Following that path, the enlightened souls become liberated. Following it, they ascend to the spiritual world. In the Brahma Samhita, 5.61, it is said, abandoning all meritorious performances serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 23.53, it is said, there are five transcendental mellows, neutrality, servitorship, friendship, paternal affection, and conjugal love, which is also known as the mellow of sweetness. Conjugal love excels all others. Sutra 102. The seven secondary rasas are, laughter, wonder, chivalry, compassion, anger, disaster, and fear. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. The Hasaya rasa, laughter, is described in the Kena Upanishad, 3.1. Even though the Supreme Personality of Godhead had personally conquered the demons, the demigods became very proud. They declared, ours is the victory. Ours is the glory. The Adbhuta rasa, wonder, is also described in the Kena Upanishad, 3.2. Unaware that the yaksa standing before them was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, the demigods became filled with wonder. They declared, who is this yaksa? The Vira rasa, chivalry, is described in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is heroic and powerful. The Karuna rasa, compassion, is described in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. The Supreme Personality of Godhead laments for the fate of the conditioned souls. The Raudra rasa, anger, is described in the Svetasvatara Upanishad. With his powerful potencies the Supreme Lord angrily rules the worlds. The Bhayanaka rasa, fear, is described in the Kata Upanishad, 2.3.2-3. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is frightening like a raised thunderbolt. Out of fear of him fire burns. Out of fear of him the sun shines. Out of fear of him Indra, Vayu, and Yama perform their duties. The Bibhatsa rasa, disaster, is described in the Chandogya Upanishad, From the Supreme Personality of Godhead all ferocious monsters are born and in him they perish. In this way the world is not overcome. From him all horrors come. In the Agni Purana it is said, from passionate attraction comes conjugal love. From anger comes chivalry. From having an 8-armed form disaster is born. From conjugal love joking and laughter are born. From anger compassion is born. From chivalry wonder is born. From disaster fear is born. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2. 5. 116, explains, besides the 5 direct melas there are 7 indirect melas known as laughter, wonder, chivalry, compassion, anger, disaster, and fear. Sutra 103 When the secondary rasas meet the primary rasas the nectar ocean of the devotional rasas increases. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mundaka Upanishad it is said, as flowing rivers abandon their names and forms and enter the great ocean, so the enlightened soul abandons his material name and form and meets the effulgent Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Agni Purana it is said, in the material world, which is like a shoreless ocean of poets, the demigod Brahma is the best poet. His poetry pleases the entire world. If a poet writes love poems, he fills the world with nectar. If he writes poems about renunciation, there is no nectar. It is right that poets write about the nectar of love. They reveal the nectar of love. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 4. 1.4 and 4. 7. 14, explains, of the devotees in these 5 primary rasas some are also situated in one of the secondary rasas, and others are situated in more than one. The rasas beginning with Santa Rasa are the 5 primary rasas. The secondary rasas, which begin with Hasaya Rasa, act to increase, Vyabhakari, the melas of the primary rasas. Chapter 4 Rasas Vedana Prakarana relishing the rasas Sutra 104 The samagras, ingredients of rasa, are of 4 kinds. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mantika Upanishad, 2, it is said, nectar love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead has 4 ingredients. In the Agni Purana it is said, when ecstatic love for the Supreme Lord is firmly established, the Vyabhikaris, which begin with the ecstatic symptom of being stunned, increase the bliss of the devotee. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sti Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2.1.4-5, explains, love for Krishna, Kesava, as previously described, reaches the supreme state of being composed of melas when its ingredients are fulfilled. By means of Vibhava, Anubhava, Sattvika, and Vyabhikari, hearing and chanting are activated, and the devotee is able to taste love for Krishna. Then attachment for Krishna, or permanent ecstasy, Sthibhava, becomes the mellow of devotional service, Bhakti Rasa. Sutra 105 The first of the samagras, ingredients of rasa, is Vibhava, the cause bringing about the tasting of love for Krishna. Vibhava is divided in 2 features, 1. Alambana, support, and 2. Udipana, awakening. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Kata Upanishad it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the supreme alambana of ecstatic love. He is the best alambana of ecstatic love. One who thus knows him as the alambana of ecstatic love becomes glorious in the spiritual world. In the Agni Purana it is said, Vibhava has 2 features, 1. Alambana, and 2. Udipana. In this way ecstatic love, which begins with rati, increases. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sti Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2. 1. 14, explains, the cause bringing about the tasting of love for Krishna is called Vibhava. Vibhava is divided into 2 categories, 4 lambana, support, and udipana, awakening. Sutra 106 The next samagri, ingredient of rasa, is anubhava, subsequent ecstasy. There are 13 kinds of anubhava. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad it is said, Bhrigu Muni said, know that the mind, knowledge, and life breath manifest 13 kinds of ecstatic symptoms in love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In the Agni Purana it is said, subsequent ecstasy is called anubhava because it is what is experienced, anubhyate, by the enlightened souls. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 2. 2, explains, practical examples of anubhava are as follows, dancing, rolling on the ground, singing very loudly, stretching the body, crying loudly, yawning, breathing very heavily, neglecting the presence of others, drooling, laughing like a madman, wheeling the head, and belching. Sutra 107 The next samagri, ingredient of rasa, is sattvika bhava, constitutional or existential ecstasy. Sattvika bhava has 8 features. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mundaka Upanishad, 3. 1. 4. It is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the life of all. He is the Supersoul splendidly manifest in all living beings. One who knows him becomes wise. That person turns from the logician's debates. He meditates on the Lord's pastimes. He loves the Lord. He serves the Lord. He is the best of transcendentalists. In the Agni Purana it is said, Sattvika Bhava has 8 features beginning with becoming stunned in ecstasy. It is called Sattvika because it is situated in pure goodness, free from any touch of passion or ignorance. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu February 3, 2011-12, explains, when the devotee feels great ecstatic love in his heart, his transformed life force agitates his body and then ecstatic symptoms, such as becoming stunned, are manifested on his body. There are 8 symptoms of existential ecstatic love: becoming stunned, perspiring, standing of the hairs on the body, faltering of the voice, trembling of the body, changing of bodily colors, shedding of tears, and devastation. Sutra 108. The next samagri, ingredient of rasa, is Saikari Bhava, continuously existing ecstatic symptoms. Saikari Bhava has 33 features. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Aitareya Upanishad, 3. 1. 2. It is said, the heart, mind, knowledge, perception, wisdom, discrimination, intelligence, vision, patience, thoughtfulness, action, memory, will, talent, reflection, desire, and control are the various parts of wisdom. In the Agni Purana it is said, renunciation is defined as that condition where the mind is no longer passionate to enjoy the things of this world. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 2.4.4-6, explains, there are some bodily symptoms that express overwhelming ecstatic love, via Bhikari Bhava. They are counted at 33 as follows: disappointment, lamentation, humility, guilt, fatigue, intoxication, pride, doubt, apprehension, intense emotion, madness, forgetfulness, disease, confusion, death, laziness, inertness, bashfulness, concealment, remembrance, argumentativeness, anxiety, thoughtfulness, endurance, happiness, eagerness, violence, haughtiness, envy, impudence, dizziness, sleepiness, and alertness. Sutra 109. The rasas of devotional service are free from the slightest scent of Maya, the illusory potency of matter. They are a great wonder of spiritual variety. They are the greatest treasure. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 4. 4. 21. It is said, a wise Brahmana will use his intelligence to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He will not study other things. Other topics are a waste of words. In the Gopalotapani Upanishad, 1.5-6, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is everything. One who meditates on him, glorifies him, and worships him, and thus enjoys the nectar of transcendental bliss, becomes immortal. He becomes immortal. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10.87.23, it is said, great sages, by practicing the mystic yoga system and controlling the breath, conquer the mind and senses. Thus engaging in mystic yoga and seeing the supersoul within their hearts, they ultimately enter into the impersonal Brahman along with the enemies of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, the damsels of Raya, the Gopas, wanted to embrace Krishna in his arms, which are like serpents. Being attracted by the beauty of Krishna, the Gopas ultimately tasted the nectar of the lotus feet of the Lord. The Upanishads have also tasted the nectar of his lotus feet by following in the footsteps of the Gopas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 2. 5. 131, explains, non-devotees cannot understand the transcendental mellows experienced between the devotee and the Lord. In all respects this is very difficult, but one who has dedicated everything to the lotus feet of Krishna can taste the transcendental mellows. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 2. 5. 112, also explains, attraction to Lord Krishna and the various kinds of ecstatic love for Krishna all come from the Lord's pleasure potency. In this way the mellows of spiritual love are self-manifest, unbroken, and perfect. Sutra 110. Lord Krishna's pastimes are the place where all the rasas rest. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Gopalotapani Upanishad, 1.8-9, it is said, Brahma said, he appears like a cowherd boy. His complexion is like a monsoon cloud. He stays under a desire tree. In the Gopalotapani Upanishad, 1.54, it is also said, therefore, Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One should meditate on him, glorify him, serve him, and worship him. Tat Sat. In the Chandogya Upanishad, 8.13. 1, it is said, "By the mercy of Lord Krishna, I take shelter of his transcendental potency, Sri Radha. By the mercy of Sri Radha, I take shelter of Lord Krishna." Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose form is like that of a human being. Now he has descended to the earth. In Sti Chaitanya Charitamrita, 21.101 and 103, it is said, Lord Krishna has many pastimes, of which his pastimes as a human being are the best. His form as a human being is the supreme transcendental form. In this form he is a cowherd boy. He carries a flute in his hand, and his youth is new. He is also an expert dancer. All this is just suitable for his pastimes as a human being. The transcendental form of Krishna is shown to the world by Lord Krishna's internal spiritual energy, which is a transformation of pure goodness. This jewel-like form is the most confidential treasure of the devotees. This form is manifest from Krishna's eternal pastimes. Sutra 111. By following the path of pure and spontaneous love, one should seek entrance into Lord Krishna's pastimes. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Gopalotapani Upanishad, 2.25-26, it is said, "He who lusts after sense pleasures is lusty. He who does not lust after sense pleasure is not lusty." In the Brahma Samhita, 5.56, it is said, "Worship that transcendental seat, known as Svetadvipa, where as loving consorts the Lakshmis in their unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every gate is a dance, the flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty." In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 24.84, 85, and 87, it is said, "There are two kinds of devotional activity, spontaneous and regulative. By spontaneous devotional service one attains the original personality of Godhead, Krishna, and by the regulative process one attains the expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Raga Bhaktivedanta and Bhagavati. By executing spontaneous devotional service and Vrindavana one attains the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. By executing regulative devotional service one becomes an associate of Narayana and attains the Vaikuntha, the spiritual planets in the spiritual sky. Sutra 112. Regaining their original spiritual forms, the individual souls may enter Lord Krishna's pastimes. That is their greatest glory. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad, 8.12. 3. It is said, "The enlightened soul then leaves his material body behind and goes to meet the effulgent Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the soul manifests his original spiritual form." In the Chandogya Upanishad it is also said, "Then he said, that is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is fearless, eternal, and sweet like nectar. He is the Supreme Reality." In the Karma Purana it is said, "By performing severe austerities Agni's sons became Gopas. They attained as their husband Lord Krishna, the unborn and all-powerful creator of all the worlds." In the Padma Purana it is said, "They all became Gopas and were born in Gokula. They attained Lord Krishna as their lover. In this way they were rescued from the ocean of birth and death." Srila Rapagasvami, Sri Bhakti Rasmrita Sindhu 1. 2. 308, explains, "Let me offer my respectful obeisances again and again to those who always eagerly meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a husband, son, friend, brother, father, or intimate friend." Sutra 113. When he regains his original spiritual form, enters Lord Krishna's pure spiritual abode, worships and serves the Lord there, and there tastes the nectar of the rasas with Lord Krishna, the soul attains perfection. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Gopalotapani Upanishad, 2.12 and 14, it is said, "Sri Radha, the best of the Gopas, thought for a moment. Tarnhai Mukhayam Badaya Turvamanukrtvatisnamesa." Accepting Radha and their leader, the other Gopas became silent. In the Brahma Samhita, 5.2-4, it is said, "The super-excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokula, has thousands of petals and a corolla like that of a lotus sprouted from a part of his infinitary aspect, the whirl of the leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. The whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name consisting of 18 transcendental letters is manifested in a hexagonal figure with 6-fold divisions. The whirl of that eternal realm Gokula is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of Gopas who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like Dhamma, eyes. Spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sti Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 2. 1. 10, explains, thus the mixture of ecstatic ingredients of spiritual love for Lord Krishna becomes tasty and, being within the perception of the devotee, reaches the highest platform of wonder and deep bliss. Chapter 5 The Supreme Good Fortune Sutra 114 As they become qualified, the individual souls attain higher and higher positions. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It is said, he could understand that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is handsome, glorious, supreme, limitless, and all-knowing. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11.21.2, 16 and 18, it is said, steadiness in one's own position is declared to be actual piety, whereas deviation from one's position is considered impiety. In this way the two are definitely ascertained. Sometimes piety becomes sin and sometimes what is ordinary sin becomes piety on the strength of Vedic injunctions. Such special rules in effect eradicate the clear distinction between piety and sin. By refraining from a particular sinful or materialistic activity one becomes freed from its bondage. Such renunciation is the basis of religious and auspicious life for human beings and drives away all suffering, illusion, and fear. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita it is said, according to the candidate possessing these transcendental qualities, sneha, mana, and so on, there are 5 transcendental mellows: neutrality, servitorship, friendship, parental love, and conjugal love. Sutra 115 Vayi Bhakti, devotional service according to regulative principles, is rooted in faith in what is beyond the modes of material nature. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It is said, he wished to understand the nature of faith in the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in whom stays desire, will, doubt, error, faith, faithlessness, tolerance, intolerance, embarrassment, intelligence, fear, and all else that stays in the heart and mind. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11. 25. 27, Lord Krishna explains, faith directed towards spiritual life is in the mode of goodness, faith rooted in fruitive work is in the mode of passion, faith residing in irreligious activities is in the mode of ignorance, but faith in my devotional service is purely transcendental. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 11. 28, Lord Krishna explains, somehow or other if one is attracted to talks about me and has faith in the instructions I have set forth in Bhagavad Gita, and if one is actually detached from material things and material existence, his dormant love for me will be awakened by devotional service. In the Bhagavad Gita, 6.46-47, Lord Krishna explains, a yogi is greater than the ascetic, greater than the empiricist, and greater than the fruitive worker. Therefore, O Arjuna, in all circumstances be a yogi. And of all yogis the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. Srila Bhaktivinoda Swami, Sti Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu January 4, 2015-16, explains, in the beginning there must be faith. Then one becomes interested in associating with pure devotees. Thereafter one is initiated by the spiritual master and executes the regulative principles under his orders. Thus one is freed from all unwanted habits and becomes firmly fixed in devotional service. Thereafter one develops taste and attachment. This is the way of sadhana bhakti, the execution of devotional service according to the regulative principles. Gradually emotions intensify, and finally there is an awakening of love. This is the gradual development of love of Godhead for the devotee interested in Krishna consciousness. Sutra 116 Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous devotional service, is rooted in attraction and love. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, 1.4.8, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is more dear than sons, more dear than wealth, more dear than all else. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1. 7. 11, it is said, being very much attracted by the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, the mind of Srila Sukadeva Goswami was agitated by Krishna consciousness. He therefore began to study Srimad Bhagavatam by the grace of his father. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, the devotees are passionately devoted to the Lord. He is the object of their love. The Lord himself explains, Srimad Bhagavatam March 25, 1938, because the devotees accept me as their friend, their relative, their son, their preceptor, benefactor, and supreme deity, they cannot be deprived of their possessions at any time. Ardently loving the Lord, the devotees serve him by hearing, chanting, and remembering his glories, serving his feet, offering obeisances to him, and completely surrendering to him. This ardent devotional service is called Ragadmika Bhakti. From that is manifested Rusi, love and attraction. Thus Rusi follows Ragadmika Bhakti. Sutra 117. In the first kind of devotion, Vaiya Bhakti, the devotees are aware of the Lord's opulence. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mundaka Upanishad, 1. 4. It is said, there are two kinds of knowledge, superior and inferior. The knowledge of the Arjya Veda and Yajur Veda is inferior knowledge. In the Pavitratra it is said, in this strong devotional service one is aware of the opulences of the Lord. In this way one attains the liberations that begin with Sarsti Mukti. Srila Bhaktivinoda Sti Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 1. 4. 14, explains, they who follow the path of Vidi Bhakti are especially aware of the Lord's glory and opulence. Srila Bhaktivinoda explains, in the weaker form of devotional service, Vaiya Bhakti, one is aware of the Lord's glories and opulences. Sutra 118. In the second kind of devotion, Raganuga Bhakti, the devotees are not aware of the Lord's opulences. This kind of devotion is completely pure. It is not mixed with anything else. It is very powerful. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura. In the Mundaka Upanishad, 1.5, it is said, the superior knowledge enables one to understand the imperishable Supreme Personality of Godhead. With this superior knowledge the enlightened souls are able to see the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who cannot be seen by material eyes or understood by the material mind, who has no material family, no material caste, and no material eyes, ears, hands, or feet, who is eternal, all-powerful, all-pervading, very subtle, and unchanging, and who is the creator of all. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 7. 1. 31, it is said, my dear King Yudhishthira, the Gopis by their lusty desires, Katansa by his fear, Sisapala and other kings by envy, the Yadus by their familial relationship with Krishna, you Pandavas by your great affection for Krishna, and we, the general devotees, by our devotional service, have obtained the mercy of Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda explains, they who take shelter of Raganuga Bhakti, spontaneous love for Lord Krishna, feel love that is pure and unmixed with anything else. Srila Bhaktivinoda explains, Raganuga Bhakti is very powerful. It does not depend on anything else. Sutra 119. Sadhana Bhakti, devotional service in practice, continues up to the stage of asakshi, attachment. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mundaka Upanishad, 3. 1. 7, it is said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the greatest. He is splendid and transcendental. His form is beyond the understanding of the material mind. He is more subtle than the most subtle. He stays far away from the impious. The devotees see him in their hearts. In the Narayana Pajikaratra it is said, in that stage one becomes intoxicated with love for Lord Krishna. Srila Bhaktivinoda, Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 1. 2. 193, explains, by engaging in Vidi Bhakti the devotee attains ecstatic love for Lord Krishna. This is confirmed by both scripture and logic. Srila Bhaktivinoda, Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 1. 3. 8, also explains, by engaging in sadhana bhakti the devotee attains attraction to Lord Krishna, attachment to him, and then love for him. Sutra 120. The stages that begin with bhava and end in mahabhava are called siddha bhakti, perfect devotional service. In these stages the samvit sakti, potency of transcendental knowledge, and ladini akshi, potency of transcendental bliss, are manifested. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Saparnasruti it is said, until one is liberated, one should worship the Lord every day. After attaining liberation, one should continue to worship the Lord. In the Brihatantra it is said, even though she is eternally liberated, and even though all her desires are at once fulfilled, Goddess Lakshmi continues to worship Lord Vishnu eternally. Every devotee acts in that way. Srila Narada Muni explains, you have described the highest liberation, where spiritual truth is present and the false identification with the material body is absent. Beyond that kind of liberation is the liberation of devotional service. In that kind of liberation the proper identification of a living entity as a spirit soul is manifested. In that liberation Krishna and Balarama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is splendidly manifest. In that devotional liberation the spiritual senses of the spiritual form of the liberated soul are filled with bliss. Their Lord Krishna, the original Supreme Personality of Godhead, enjoys blissful pastimes. Srila Swami explains, love for Lord Krishna grows more and more intense, manifesting different stages known as rati, prema, sneha, mana, pranaya, raga, anuraga, and bhava. As sugarcane juice becomes thicker as it proceeds to become molasses, granules, and finally rock candy, so love of Lord Krishna gradually becomes more and more intense. In the Siddhanta Ratna it is said, in the highest stage of devotional service, the Lord's Samvit potency and Hladini potency are manifested. There the eternal associates of the Lord desire to serve him in many ways. Sutra 121 Liberation is that stage where, leaving his material body behind, the soul again manifests his original spiritual form. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Chandogya Upanishad it is said, know that the liberated soul is free from destruction, sin, passion, death, grief, hunger, and thirst. All his desires are at once fulfilled. In the Vishnu Purana it is said, meeting with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, a meeting that is filled with the greatest bliss, is the final cure for the disease known as continued residence in the material world. In Srimad Bhagavatam 2.10.6, it is said, liberation is the permanent situation of the form of the living entity after he gives up the changeable gross and subtle material bodies. Srila Goswami explains, the phrase Svarayapina Vyavasthishi in this verse means that the original form of the spirit soul is again manifested. Sutra 122. There are two kinds of liberation, 1. Svarapasiddha, perfection of one's original form, and 2. Vastasita, perfection of opulences. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura Svarapasiddha Mukti is described in Brihadaranyaka Upanishad 4.7. When all material desires have fled from his heart, the soul trapped in the world of birth and death becomes immortal. Then he enjoys the company of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vastasita Mukti is described in the Chandogya Upanishad 8.12.3. The enlightened soul then leaves his material body behind and goes to meet the effulgent Supreme Personality of Godhead. Then the soul manifests his original spiritual form. Svarupasiddha Mukti is also described in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.33. Whenever a person experiences, by self-realization, that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. Vastasita Mukti is also described in Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.34. If the illusory energy subsides and the living entity becomes fully enriched with knowledge by the grace of the Lord, then he becomes at once enlightened with self-realization and thus becomes situated in his own glory. Srila Goswami describes the condition of a person liberated even in this life, in Srimad Bhagavatam 11.14.13. It is said, one who does not desire anything within this world, who has achieved peace by controlling his senses, whose consciousness is equal in all conditions, and whose mind is completely satisfied in me finds only happiness wherever he goes. Final liberation is described in this verse. There are 5 kinds of liberation: 1. To be one with the Lord, 2. To achieve residence on the Lord's planet, 3. To have the Lord's opulences, 4. To possess bodily features similar to the Lord's, and 5. To gain personal association with the Lord. These kinds of liberation are beyond the touch of the modes of material nature. In these kinds of liberation the Lord directly appears before his devotee. Only in the liberation where the soul becomes one with the Lord does the Lord not directly appear. Sutra 123 Liberation is the eternal companion of devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Gopalotapani Upanishad 1.14. It is said, devotional service to Lord Krishna is performed when the heart no longer desires any material benefit to be obtained in this life or the next. That is freedom from the bonds of karma. In the Naradapanikharatra it is said, liberation and a host of wonderful pleasures and perfections are the servants and followers of devotional service. Srila Goswami explains, Priti puts an end to sufferings. Without Priti the Lord does not directly appear. Therefore Priti must be manifested. To the extent that Priti is manifested, to that extent one attains good fortune. Because of Priti one becomes free from the material body and is able to enjoy spiritual happiness. Therefore the spiritual aspirant should strive to attain Priti. Sutra 124 Devotional service is sometimes served by knowledge and renunciation. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Katha Upanishad 2.1.2. It is said, fools follow their material desires and run into the noose of death. The wise know it is eternal. They do not seek anything in this world where nothing is eternal. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.12, it is said, The seriously inquisitive student or sage, well equipped with knowledge and detachment, realizes that absolute truth by rendering devotional service in terms of what he has heard from the Vedanta Shruti. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 1. 2. 7, it is said, by rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. Srila Bhaktivinoda Sri Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 1.2.248, 249, and 251, explains, in the beginning spiritual knowledge and renunciation may be appropriate for devotional service, but they are not really a part of devotional service, and in the end they become inappropriate. Spiritual knowledge and renunciation tend to make the heart very hard, but devotional service makes the heart very soft. Whatever good a person would have attained by spiritual knowledge and renunciation he attains perfectly by engaging in devotional service. Sutra 125 Devotional service is independent. It does not depend on knowledge and renunciation. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Taittiriya Upanishad it is said, he who knows the blissful Supreme Personality of Godhead never fears. In Srimad Bhagavatam, November 14, 2020, 21, and 24, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, said, My dear Deva, neither through Astanga Yoga, the mystic yoga system to control the senses, nor through impersonal monism or an analytical study of the absolute truth, nor through study of the Vedas, nor through practice of austerities, nor through charity, nor through acceptance of sannyasa can one satisfy me as much as one can by developing unalloyed devotional service unto me. We being very dear to the devotees and sadhus, I am attained through unflinching faith and devotional service. This bhakti yoga system, which gradually increases attachment for me, purifies even a human being born among dog-eaters. That is to say, everyone can be elevated to the spiritual platform by the process of bhakti yoga. A devotee whose speech is sometimes choked up, whose heart melts, who cries continually and sometimes laughs, who feels ashamed and cries out loudly and then dances, a devotee thus fixed in loving service to me purifies the entire universe. Srila Rupa Goswami, Sti Bhakti Rasmrta Sindhu 1.2.157-161, explains, a person always engaged in the activities of devotional service attains the good qualities of true renunciation already described. An impersonalist, however, does not attain true renunciation. His renunciation is false. One should not be very eager to accumulate money and disciples. They can distract the devotee and they are not necessary parts of devotional service. To be expert in philosophy and able to discern what is true and what is not a necessary feature of a person engaged in devotional service. Purification of consciousness, purification of bodily activities, austerities, peace of mind, etc. all become automatically manifest in a person who is engaged in devotional service. Therefore the devotee need not endeavor separately to attain them. Sutra 126 Devotional service reveals the glory of the soul's true nature. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad it is said, devotional service is the supreme goal, the supreme wealth, the supreme abode, and the supreme bliss. All blisses come from it. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 14. 32, it is said, how greatly fortunate are Nanda Maharaja, the cowherd men, and all the inhabitants of Rajabnitmi. There is no limit to their good fortune because the absolute truth, the source of all transcendental bliss, the eternal Supreme Brahman, has become their friend. Srila Jiva Goswami explains, by the touch of the potency that reveals the soul's original form, the illusory potency Maya disappears and the cycle of repeated birth and death is broken. Thus liberated, the soul experiences transcendental bliss. In this way one attains the real goal of life. As long as one does not seek this real goal of life the true reality will not be manifested to him. Therefore a person who desires spiritual knowledge never says, "I am happy in the material world with material things." However, when he attains spiritual knowledge, he says, "Now I am happy." The word Mahimni here means when the opulence of his original spiritual form is manifested, and Mahiyate means is worshipped. In this way the glory of the soul is manifested. That is the meaning. Sutra 127 Devotional service takes its birth among conditioned souls only when they associate with saintly devotees. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Svetavatara Upanishad, 6.23, it is said, only unto those great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. In Srimad Bhagavatam, 10. 51. 53, it is said, O my Lord! O infallible Supreme Person! When a person wandering throughout the universes becomes eligible for liberation from material existence, he gets an opportunity to associate with devotees. When he associates with devotees, his attraction for you is awakened. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the highest goal of the Supreme Devotees and the Lord of the Universe. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.83, explains, the root cause of devotional service to Lord Krishna is association with advanced devotees. Srila Ramanuja Swami explains, by associating with saintly devotees one attains transcendental knowledge. In this way one certainly attains the best thing that can be attained. One should wholeheartedly associate with saintly Vaisnavas. With all one's heart one should do good to them. One should converse with them and associate with them in various ways. One should stay far away from non-devotees. Association with great souls who are surrendered to the Lord is the great way to make advancement in devotional service. There is no way better than this. Sutra 128. The Lord's mercy is also the cause of attaining devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Katha Upanishad, 1. 2. 20. It is said, both the Supersoul, Paramatma, and the atomic soul, Jivatma, are situated on the same tree of the body within the same heart of the living being, and only one who has become free from all material desires as well as lamentations can, by the grace of the Supreme, understand the glories of the soul. In the Narada Bhakti Sutra it is said, primarily one attains devotional service by the mercy of the great devotees, but one may also attain it from a small particle of the mercy of the Supreme Lord Himself. Srila Vallabha Swami explains, by the mercy of great souls one attains the mercy of the Supreme Lord. In this way one becomes glorious and blissful. Sutra 129. The Vedic knowledge, passed down through the disciplic succession, is another cause of devotional service. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Mundaka Upanishad, 1.1-3, it is said, Lord Brahma, who is the firstborn of the demigods and the creator and protector of the worlds, spoke this knowledge of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the best of all knowledge, to his eldest son, Atharvan. Atharvan then spoke this spiritual knowledge to Angira Muni, and Angira Muni spoke it to Satyavaha Muni of the Bharadvaja dynasty. Noble-hearted Sanaka Muni respectfully approached Angira Muni and asked, "O Master, what is the one reality by knowing whom all else becomes known?" In the Padma Purana it is said, unless one is initiated by a bona fide spiritual master in the disciplic succession, the mantra he might have received is without any effect. For this reason 4 Vaisnava disciplic successions, inaugurated by Lakshmi Devi, Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, and Sanaka Kumara, will appear in the holy place of Jagannath Puri in Orissa and purify the entire earth during the age of Kali. Srila Baladeva Vidyabhashana, who wrote a commentary on Vedanta Sutra, explains, Sri Pramaya Ratnavali 1.7, with great devotion we glorify the spiritual masters in the Gaudiya Vaisnava disciplic succession. A list of their names follows, 1. Lord Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, 2. Brahma, 3. Narada, 4. Vyasa, 5. Madhvacharya, 6. Padmanabha, 7. Nari, 8. Madhava, 9. Aksabhya, 10. Jayartha, 11. Jnanasindhu, 12. Dayanidhi, 13. Vidyanidhi, 14. Rajendra, 15. Jayadharma, 16. Purushotama, 17. Brahmanya, 18. Vaidsatirtha, 19. Lakshmipati, 20. Madhavendrapuri, and 21. Isvarapuri, Advaita Prabhu, and Nityananda Prabhu, who were all disciples of Madhavendrapuri. We worship Isvarapuri's disciple, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who delivered the entire universe by granting the gift of Krishna Prema, pure love for Lord Krishna. Sutra 130. A person's actions are the mother of his future destiny. Therefore with all one's heart one should serve the saintly devotees. Commentary by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakura in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad it is said, taking birth, the soul enters a material body. Here he has a choice. He may commit sins, or he may, on dying, leave all his sins behind. In the Prasna Upanishad, 6.8, it is said, after hearing the answers to all their questions, the students worshipped the sage and said, "You are our father. You have taken us to the farther shore of this ocean of ignorance. We offer our obeisances to the great sages. We offer our obeisances to the great sages." In the Padma Purana it is said, "My dear Devi, although the Vedas recommend worship of demigods, the worship of Lord Vishnu is topmost. However, above the worship of Vishnu is the rendering of service to Vaisnavas, who are related to Lord Vishnu. The devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead are never to be considered Sidras. The word Sidra can be applied only to they who are not devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Srimad Bhagavatam 5.5.2, it is said, one can attain the path of liberation from material bondage only by rendering service to highly advanced spiritual personalities. For those who are not interested in such activities, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. In Srimad Bhagavatam 1.18.13, it is said, the value of a moment's association with the devotee of the Lord cannot even be compared to the attainment of heavenly planets or liberation from matter, and what to speak of worldly benedictions in the form of material prosperity, which are for those who are meant for death. In Srimad Bhagavatam 11.2.29, it is said, for the conditioned souls, the human body is most difficult to achieve, and it can be lost at any moment. But I think that even those who have achieved human life rarely gain the association of pure devotees, who are dear to the Lord of Vaikuntha. In the Narada Bhakti Sutra it is said, differences of birth, education, beauty, family, wealth, and good deeds do not apply to they who are devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya 22.54, explains, the verdict of all revealed scriptures is that by even a moment's association with a pure devotee one can attain all success. Srila Balarama Dasa explains, O brother, please associate with the saintly Vaisnavas. In this way you will cross the ocean of repeated birth and death. Please chant the glories of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. In this way you will become filled with bliss. After a great labor of many thousands of births you have attained this rare human body. By the mercy of the great souls please engage in devotional service. Then you will put an end to repeated birth and death. I do not have any of the garlands, rings, or garments of devotional service. I am only a huckster. I have thrown away all that is beautiful. Lamb like a vine born among sandal trees. Balarama Dasa did not attain the treasure of association with saintly devotees. That is why he remains in this blind well of birth and death.